Hello and welcome to Marvin Gardens 2013 July. It's late July, but it's still July. And I often call July the high holy days of gardening because this is the time of year when your garden actually turns into what you dream about all the other months of the year. And for the most part, it's not disappointing this year. But we do have some oddball things happening. Anyway, starting with chives, they are looking just fine. And we even have under here, you can see, a late bloomer. Those usually bloom in May. Every once in a while you get one that blooms late. Meanwhile, the cabbages are not really starting to head up too much yet, but they're doing okay. The broccoli we've harvested for the most part, but we are still getting these side shoots. So I come through every so often and snip those off. They're continuing to do pretty well. The Brussels sprouts are coming along. It'll be a while before we actually harvest any of those, but you can see them beginning to come in. Good news on the ground cherry front. Those struggling little plants did finally take hold and are doing okay. Frankie's been helping himself to the ground cherries, which are these little guys down here. They're in those little husks, and when they get sort of yellowish, that means they're ready to go. And he loves them. And also some good news in the eggplant category. They were struggling, but as you can see, we've got some nice ones coming in. And I just love the color of eggplant, that brilliant purple, uncharacteristic for a garden, so nice to have. Now I've planted some marigolds here. This is where the onions used to be, and let me take a quick venture over here and I'll show you the onion harvest. The onions were definitely not pleased with my decision to move them to another location. And we've got a nice bag of onions here, but I guess that's maybe 1/3 or so of what we've done in past years. Here's a little clip of how they looked when they were all laid out. But we've got, just about the same amount of onions as in previous years, but they're all very small. And like I say, I just think that they didn't like the spot that I put them in this year. So we'll put them back in the regular spot next year. I'm also having some strange bean things happening. As you can see, some of these are climbing up the trellises and doing fine. Some of them, like this one here, these are the sunset runner beans, I think they're called. They're just looking anemic, and the yard-long Thai beans just kind of fizzled out and dried up. Now, there's some growth down here at the very bottom, so I'm not really sure what happened with them. Meanwhile, our old favorite rattlesnake pole beans are doing just fine. They produce these nifty purple striped sort of mottled beans, and they've been doing well. We've had quite a few. The vine looks healthy, and so they're doing okay. And look at this in the lima bean department. Some very nice young lima beans coming in. They won't be ready for quite some time, but at least there's several pods coming in. And likewise, the vine itself looks pretty well, or looks pretty good, I should say. Now I finally got my sweet potatoes planted. That's what these are, but they're so late that I'm going to be really surprised if we get anything but maybe, if we're lucky, some finger-sized sweet potatoes. It just took so long for the slips. Maybe next time I'll put them in pots or something under the lights when they start to root, because they just didn't go anywhere. Meanwhile, these are okras that I just planted here because there was some space. And these are the okras that I started the second round of okras after I had such trouble with the first ones. And this magnificent half bed is Silver Queen corn. And one of the reasons that I like growing corn is that it just explodes. And I've measured these stalks, and the highest ones are literally 12 feet tall and delightful. And the corn ears themselves are kind of the glamour girls of the garden, because look at that tassel of silks. Just gorgeous. And in this case, they're sort of covered with the raindrops from the thunder showers that moved through with a cold front a little while ago. But it's so much fun, the corn, because it just gets so big and impressive. Now, this is interesting. I had a clump of what I believe are sunflowers sprout up in the middle of this bed on their own, and I just took the clump of them and separated them out and made them into a row of sunflowers, and it looks like they're going to survive. And in addition, here we have 2 rows of carrots, which are about due to be thinned, and I'm down to just 1 row of marigolds, all volunteers from previous year's seeds, and they're doing pretty well, and I've planted them all over the garden, including the center area here, and strategically placed in several of the beds. Here we are in the peanuts area, and again, the plants look pretty good, but I don't see any signs of what I thought I was going to see, which is a peanut sort of shoots going down into the ground, which is where they're supposed to develop. So I don't know what's going on with them. Meanwhile, potatoes. Remember, we had 2 rounds of potatoes. Did I say tomatoes? These are potatoes, obviously. And this was the first group, this row here. And the green is beginning to die back, which means we'll be pulling potatoes out of here in the next few weeks. And this is the second round, which is 2 to 3 weeks behind the first round. And they've still got a ways before we pull them down. And this here is just a magnificent looking sunflower that I transplanted on the end of this row. Now we're over into bed number 4, and leeks we have been pulling regularly, and these guys are just looking fine. It's almost time to pull the rest of them, because you can't leave them in too long. They start to deteriorate. But as you can see, they really like this spot and have been doing just fine. Now, here's the okra, and it's really funny. The second round of okra, which are these broader leaves with the purple in them, are almost just as big as the first round, which are these thinner, greener leaves. And I have been getting some okra pods off of these, off the first 3 that survived. But pretty soon I'm going to be getting okra off these other ones, because they are doing just fine. So, and we've got plenty of time. We'll get okra all the way up until it gets close to the frost. Now this is interesting. I thought I was planting a broccoli plant here at the end of the kohlrabi row, but it ended up being a brassica. I mean, brassica. They're all brassicas, Marvin. It ended up being Brussels sprouts. And interestingly enough, in this location, this Brussels sprouts plant is doing much better than all the others that we saw early on in the video. So it definitely, you know, location, and the bed that you plant things in, they differ. And the plants will like them or not like them. This is where kohlrabi used to be. Now I got some great kohlrabis, and huge ones, a 5-pounder and a 6-pounder, and they don't appear to be woody at all, even at that size. However, I did find out that if you leave them in the ground too long, they might tend to rot. So I lost quite a few of them. But lesson learned. There's that little one. I don't know why it didn't get any bigger than it has so far, but we'll just leave it here and see if it gets bigger. Peppers. These are, I believe, the long Thai, or as I like to call them, the long tall Thai, because they're very tall plants, much taller than the other peppers. But you can see that they're producing very nicely. But we have had some weird casualties out here. Now this one, he's sort of hanging on, but you can see next to the one behind him, he's just pretty sickly, and I thought I was going to lose him. And we have lost a few out here. Just suddenly a pepper plant will just give up. Now these are the Tequila Sunrise, and you can see that that one's starting to get that orange color. So is that one, which is why I like these, just for the color, if nothing else. And they're doing okay. And this is Melrose, and they turn that bright fiery red, but they're not a hot pepper, they're a sweet pepper. And they're doing quite well. And finally, in the pepper department, these are called California Wonder, and those are actually looking pretty wonderful. Pretty good size. So far, it doesn't look like they're having significant problems. But I did have one of those plants just up and die on me all of a sudden. But the ones that are going pretty well. All right, that brings us to the Grand Tomato area, and let me back up here to give you the full effect. They are exploding over their cages and doing very fine. The largest variety are these Delicious. That one's got a little split on it. But look at the size of this one back here. Just very large and turning. This we can pull out of here. But I'm getting quite a few, and look, here's a really nice cluster. Look at they're green, of course, obviously, but what a nice cluster of big Delicious, and that's the variety name. And look at this one. This one's ready to be pulled. We'll pull that in tonight. It's a little orange yet, but I don't dare leave it out any longer. These are Amish paste, and you can tell that the different variety because of that oblong shape. We've pulled a few of those already, and they're very good, very fleshy. Here's one that's turning, and they've been doing pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with how they're coming along. They got off to a pretty slow start, but they are gaining speed. And here we have Juliet, which is not only our favorite variety generically here at Sky Manor, but in particular Frankie's. Now Frankie has been helping himself to these for quite some time. In fact, I even have a clip of his method here. Good boy. So, yeah, he's been enjoying them quite a bit, and I don't mind, you know, I mean, he eats them, so I'm glad that he can enjoy them too, and he does. He looks for them and helps himself to them every time we're out here. Now here's an interesting story. See this, you can see that the damage, this is the tomatoes that I planted in pots, the extra ones that I had, and some of them, like that one I showed you back over here, that's in a pot, and it's doing quite well. They do well in pots, But when I saw this damage on this one, I thought, oh, I must have a rodent, a squirrel or something, bunny maybe, that's coming in and eating this. And but no, it wasn't. You know what it was? It was a tomato hornworm. I had no idea how much damage one tomato hornworm can do. It just defoliates. You can see there's no leaves on this at all. And it also eats the tomatoes, which I didn't know. I thought it ate the leaves of the plant, but I had no idea that it would munch on the tomatoes. He's no longer with us once I discovered him. But I was just surprised that one caterpillar, so to speak, could do so much damage. All right, so this brings us to bed 5, and our summer squash, which is doing very nicely all the way around. We've pulled a bunch of summer squash already. In fact, we've got a backlog. There's a nice looking zucchini. It's ready to be pulled tonight, I think. And I don't see any other zooks in here, but we also have crooknecks. That's a little one there. Doesn't look like we have any big ones right ready, but we've had quite a few. And then the third variety is scallop squash, and there's one that's ready to be pulled tonight, so we will pull that one. But so far summer squash has been doing well. It hasn't been hit by any mildew, mold, or wilt of any type, so we'll see how that goes. Now this variety of corn, this is the second variety of eating corn, much smaller, maybe 6 to 8 feet tall, but there are many ears coming in, and so it's all in how these ears fill out. I mean, it's amazing. These ears are only like a foot off the ground, and unfortunately, like this one right here, the dachshunds have discovered them, and this one they knocked over, and you can see that Frankie was kind of chewing on this one. He got reprimanded for that. But I've found that they love corn so much that even before the corn comes in, they'll take down a stalk and eat it. Because when you can't get corn on the cob, if you can eat the stalk, that's almost as good. Right, Jessie? Jessie is very impatient for the corn to start coming in. Right, girl? Muddy nose from digging? Yes, good girl. All right, bed number 6, the last bed in the garden proper. I've done a lot of transplanting of marigolds, just sort of to fill this bed up, because it's otherwise obviously vacant of vegetables. So I have a very nice bed of marigolds going here. And then on the very end, a couple of rows of sunflowers. And they are small sunflowers, but they're very colorful. And of course, they're also 6 to 8 feet tall. That's a very fine one right there. And so they're doing very well. Now let's go out to the other magnificent corn stand out here at the external corn patch, and it also is just a magnificent stand of corn. I think you can see down that long row. I don't know if you can see how many ears with silks are forming, but it's really a lot of fun. And what I like to do is the ears get pollinated from the tassels up on top there, and so I like to walk in between the rows and assist in the process a little bit by shaking the stalks and knocking the pollen from the tassels down onto the silks, because that's what you're supposed to do. And oh, by the way, while we're here, this is my new solar powered fence electrifier, and it works. I tested it. But anyway, that's how you it's supposed to be a deer deterrent. They don't claim that voltage will stop a deer, but I think it's got to slow them down, because it slows me down if I hit it by mistake. But anyway, what I wanted to show you was this quick video of what it looks like when I'm walking through the corn, assisting with the pollination. And I just walk down the the rows, and shake every corn stalk that I can get my hands on to knock the pollen off and have it come down. And this is brought to you by the magic of headcam. I'll show you that sometime later, maybe. Anyway, while we're out here, let's walk over to the mini orchard, as I call it, and because we have got some activity out there and some potential. And if I can slosh through all the puddles here from our downpour. So here we are. You can see that although this tree looks a little anemic, there are a few peaches on there. And this other tree here also is showing a few peaches. And I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but Frankie is complaining because I'm out here and he's not. This is the Red Delicious apple tree. May not be easy to see, but there are several apples there. And this is Granny Smith. And that looks kind of neat with the raindrops on it and everything. And finally, there's one other peach tree around the corner here. And golly, I don't see any peaches on that one anymore. So looks like that one's not going to yield anything. But there's a Red Delicious. Looks green now, of course, but it'll turn red. And here's another cluster of them, or two. And let's take a quick run over to the pear tree. So here's the little pear tree up close to the house, and as you can see, there are lots of pears. And again, they look very nice with the little raindrops dripping off of them. So if they hang on, we're going to get a nice pear crop this year, because there's lots of them. But you never know with fruit trees. Sometimes, they get, a ways into the season and then they just drop everything for some reason. And other times, they just don't do much from the get-go. Now, this is a portrait of a dachshund that is saying, "What? You left without me? What's the deal, man? Why did you leave without me? Come back in, or let me come out." Okay, Frankie, we're coming in. Alright, we're past our new gate. No, you stay in here, because we're staying in here. There we go. Alright, is that it? I think that might be it. As you can see, I'm using the mini greenhouse here for hay storage. Does pretty well. Keeps it from getting wet and keeps it ready. Also doing the same thing here with this drying rack. So that's worked pretty well. But I think I've showed you everything for July. So that's going to do it, as the saying goes. These are the high holy days of gardening, and I think you've seen why. Even with our oddball failures and slow starts in some categories, We're still having a very fine garden. It's a lovely night, although it's really sort of dreary right now, and we've had thunderstorms coming through. But we're still in the middle of the dog days of summer, and the dogs are enjoying it, and so am I. So that's going to do it. Marvin Gardens, July 2013, and we'll see you next month in August. And we might be eating corn by then, so that'll be fun. See you later. Bye. Boy, that one went down fast. Good boy. What a tomato dog.